Welcome to Tools on Tech. So in this video, I want to talk about 5 things that you can do with ChatGPT to help it work with Logseq. I will not be discussing plugins. While they are nice, this is more about the ChatGPT functionality and how to make sure that it gets resolved into Logseq, and then integrating ChatGPT into Logseq. At the end of the video, I will also address some of the privacy concerns, because ChatGPT, if you have the free or paid version, will be using it to train their model, and you need to know what that really entails to know if you want to use it for real inside Logseq. So starting with the first tip, and that is to ask for Logseq results. And what do I mean with that? Logseq is a block-based editor. So yes, you can ask for Markdown, but that's not the result that you're actually looking for. What you're looking for is to get like a bulleted list of multiple levels. And by asking specifically this line, you will get a result that is much more Logseq-y. And so that means that when you copy and paste it into Logseq, it will be giving you the results that you are expecting. I will be demonstrating most of this tip in the rest of the video when you see me copy and pasting results. And then the second tip is to convert website data for Logseq. Now let me get into a quick demo about that. So one of the things that Logseq already does very well is copy and pasting tables. So for example, if I take this page on Amazon and I take this, excuse for the Dutch, but I take this table and I do a copy and I go towards Logseq, then if I do this, it will make it into a table and that will look fine. So in that case, you don't really need ChatGPT. So let me show you a more practical example. If, for example, I go to the Dutch traffic site, this is the Dutch train system, and I say I want to plan a route from Amsterdam to Amersfoort. Now, if I plan that and I get like results in a website like this, and I say that I want to add that to my notes, that won't always work as well as you would hope. So for example, if I copy paste this with like the pricing in it, and I do a copy, and I go towards Logseq and I paste that into Logseq, and then this is an absolute mess. This is not going to help me. So that's where ChatGPT comes in. So let me go towards ChatGPT, and then I just open the default chat. I'm using 4, but this will work at 3.5 as well. So I'm pasting the data I have here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to turn it into a short readable format of multiple levels. Let me copy and paste that one as well, save me some typing. And hit that, and then see what we get. And as you can see, it already uses the information I gave it to turn this into bullet points, meaning that it's like easier to copy and paste into Logseq, which we will do as soon as it's done. Copy, I go back to Logseq and paste. And this is like already a lot better than we just had. Well, one of the tricks with ChatGPT is that you can chat with it. So let's go back and improve it a little. So I'm going to go say like, hey, super nice that you formatted it in Markdown, but I'm going to give it very specific instructions. So I'm going to say, can you modify it? So departure and arrival are in one block and they are table formatted. I want to remove any of the train details, so like which train is driving where, I don't care about that. I wanted to remove duration and transfers, and the ticket prices should also be in a single block and table formatted. So this is the back and forth. This is also one of the reasons why I enjoy using the ChatGPT interface, because I can do that back and forth into it. Now let me see what it gets me. Again, it starts generating, but as you can see, it starts generating tables. And that is usually like a lot more condensed. So then I can take this amount of data here, or like just copy the whole thing. I do a copy. I go back to Logseq, and if I paste it now, then what I get is much more readable. I can just clean this up a little bit, but not much. And then I have my train journey. I have it like in a nice tabled format saying like, hey, this is when I departure, this is when I arrive, on what tracks that will be. That's the Dutch word for track. And then the pricing for it, and it's all nice and tidy around it. And it took me like no time at all. So remembering mostly that back and forth, it's not just about asking for stuff, but also saying like, hey, I really specifically want this to be pared down. And that is why you need to be specific when talking and keep Logseq in mind when chatting with ChatGPT. Then we get to the third tip, and that is to reformat your note-taking. And this is mostly talking about what I call multi-level notes. So I have like a 3-layered structure, meaning that I have a top layer, which is like headings where I divide my text up. And then I have a second layer that allows me to quickly get to the information I'm looking for. And then the final layer, which has the text. Now I got a small thing prepped that I didn't optimize yet to show you. So if I go towards Logseq, here I'm talking about Logseq graph usage, and I have like a line here saying use of graphs and graph forces. I'll be copy pasting this bit and I'll send it towards ChatGPT. I'm going to ChatGPT, I'm going to paste this whole bunch in there. And then I'm going to specifically ask it to reformat it. So let me get that text. And what I do is I say reformat this to be the main heading stays. So that's the top level one. And then in between that second level, I want like a 2 to 5 word summary in bold and then have the original text below that. I'm specifically asking to make sure that the third level stays the same as the source text. And that is because I don't want ChatGPT to get creative with my notes. There's a good chance it still does. And in that case, you can rephrase that last line and say like, no, you have to be staying in line with the previous text. Now we let ChatGPT do its thing, and it seems to be doing it straight out of the gate well. You might be wondering like, okay, what's the change here? But if I bring this back to Logseq, I go here and I basically start a new line and I do a paste. This is what I like most about it. Let me remove the use of graphs here. And what do I mean with the multi-level is that if I'm not using my notes, I fold this part in. Now Logseq will remind that, so next time when I open the page, I can see, oh, I'm opening the Logseq graph and the max link distance, and then I can open it and read my full text. This is mostly because when I don't read my notes and I need to re-access them, I don't know which notes I made, which is there. And by having this short word summary there, I still have my source. I can open it on the side. I have these really small tidbits of notes that I can put to the side and then have for later reference. And it just makes it so much quicker to see what do I have notes about, because this is very easy to skim, at least much easier than the original full text. And I did no effort at all for this. It just asked ChatGPT to reformat it for me after I'm done taking my notes. Then for the fourth tip, I'll need to get up because make notes by talking. This is one of the features of the ChatGPT app that I really like, where you can talk back and forth. And to fully demonstrate that, I'm going to get up and I'm going to show you how I'm taking notes while I'm walking around my living room. So what I wanted to show while I was outside is how to use GPT's, well, natural language function. I used to do recordings where we just ramble and then let AI sort it out later. But ChatGPT has improved their app and they now have like a back and forth chatting mode. So here I have my phone open, I have ChatGPT 3.5 so that anybody can use it, but I usually talk to 4, and then there's this small button in the corner that says headphone. I'm giving a quick demo for my YouTube video, and I would like the answers to be short because I'm going to be taking a few notes, and then in the end I will go back to my computer and there ask like for the full format for into my Logseq notes.
Got it. Just let me know what you need and I'll keep the answers short and sweet for your demo. What's the first thing you'd like to know?
Okay, so I'm putting it on pause now. So what I do is that I just have a back and forth conversation with ChatGPT, and then in the end I'll just ask to format that in the way I want my markdown notes, and then I can go back to my computer and just copy paste them into Logseq. So for this example, I'm going to do like a quick back and forth chat and talk about simplifying or less note taking, because that's something that I'm currently researching for a future video. I'll just give you like the first few sentences, then the rest will speed up because then we just look at the results. Else you'll know everything for my future video and this becomes like 2 videos in one. That would be really confusing. So ChatGPT, I want to talk about note taking, and mostly about taking less notes, but taking notes that are more to the point or have like the right combination of information in there.
That sounds like a useful topic. When it comes to note taking, Quality over quantity is key. It's all about capturing the essential information in a concise and effective manner. What specific aspects of note-taking would you like to focus on for your video?
So one of the things that I'm currently thinking about is that with the application that I use, I take daily notes and there's like a journal element in it. And then there's this, well, kind of trap that you can fall into where you take too many notes, meaning that you start writing down everything that you have, and that might be a bad idea. And I want to talk about a couple of solutions to avoid that.
Absolutely. Falling into the trap of taking too many notes can be counterproductive. One solution is to focus on capturing only the most important points or key insights during your note-taking sessions. Another approach is to use shorthand.
Now you can just tap the screen to interrupt when it becomes like a long bunch of text, and that's useful because you will still get like a text log of this, so you don't have to listen to everything that is said. But it's also one of the main reasons why I usually start with like try to keep the answer short, or I ask it something like just reply with okay until I tell you that we're going to dive a little bit deeper or make this into the end result, and that will stop it from having like a large back and forth. Another thing that I really like about this whole system is that in combination with the next tip, and that is loading some data into it, you can take your notes, give them to ChatGPT, then have a conversation with your notes, with your own thoughts and stuff like that, while sitting outside enjoying the sun a little, and then take those notes refined and back into your system. This also kind of builds upon the fact that I don't think you should be taking notes or trying to get ChatGPT to do the research for you. You have to check your own notes. So it's wonderful for refining, because then you can have this back and forth and you can read your own notes and you can like really quickly get to the core of the information that you need. But because you know what you're talking about, you also know when it's like hallucinating or adding something that you didn't like. Right. Now I'm back and I finished making these notes. Now I made these notes, or like I finished up these notes while I was doing laundry. This is one of the things that I really like about this back and forth conversation that you can have. I can be doing other things. And for me, something like laundry, which doesn't require me a lot of mental energy, is an ideal time to be thinking about these things. And instead of me having to stop folding and grab a pen, I can just have this back and forth conversation until I get the end result. How does that look though? So if you have like a quick look in the top, I can see like the conversation that I had, and these were the things that you were seeing in the video. And then I have a whole bunch of conversation here that I had going back and forth with ChatGPT. Now, one of the things, of course, ChatGPT tends to be a bit long and it starts to add its own opinion to it, which I care less about. But you can ask it to stay a bit more to itself and not add too much. And then eventually I'll get to a point where I'm going like, okay, I've got enough information. I'll be going like, okay, please return that in markdown formatted notes. And then you see that I get this, and I get like a way to summarize data, right? So I'm asking it again, can you make it so it's formatted in a 3-word summary, and that the lowest level is like longer? So it tries this. You do a bit of a back and forth until I get something which is a bit more detailed. I still think that like the lowest layer is like too short. So I'm gonna do asking that last question. So this is one of the things that when I'm working with this, I'm like constantly asking for like, okay, exactly what I want. Being specific with something like ChatGPT is very important, because if not, it will just either over exaggerate what you asked. I'm really asking like for more longer details under it, and it's still not going to show up the way I like it, because I still think it's being really small on the answers here, just giving me like a single sentence. So I'm thinking either this is the best that I'm going to get, or I'm going to go ask it and just be very, very long. So let's give that another go. I'm kind of trying to force it to use that lower level and to really bring that into space. If this doesn't work, then I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to do a little bit of manual work, but mostly use the information that I've been given to give me a like more detailed result so that I can then work through and add my own thoughts and spin to it. This seems to be more like the way I like it. It's definitely producing like longer sentences on the level that I expect them. So we're going to copy and paste this straight into Logseq. Okay, so it's done generating. I'm going to go click the copy button, and then we're going to go to Logseq. And here I already made a page on taking less note. I'm just pasting it in. And as you can see, it immediately gets formatted in a format that's good for Logseq. And then all I need to do is just a little bit of cleanup. So now that I have the notes, the first thing that I want to do is like get that overall feel for it. So I'm going to go fold the stuff up to the second level, which is what I do for a lot of my notes. And then I can see like, okay, why take fewer notes, and then it reduces clutter. So I'm going to open it and have a look at it. So this is mostly what ChatGPT is telling me, and I might like, you know, rephrase it in a way that I prefer it. Having less notes means spending less time digging through it, and easier to clean up on a later date time. So it's a very summarized way of the same note that I'm just going to go add here, then saves energy. And I think that one's pretty good. I'm just going to highlight a few. Interest you. Optimize energy. That's good enough. So this is how I then go through my notes. Instead of like trying to get everything out of my head while I'm typing, I'm getting this summary from ChatGPT, and I'll just go top to bottom and clean out the notes as I need them. So I am going to be making a video about it, and then is when I'm really going to in-depthly process this when I'm making the video about making less notes. One of the other things that I also did is that once I have all these notes, I either copy paste the cleaned up version that I have back into ChatGPT and then ask it to generate me like a video outline. So I'll just say like, okay, I want to make a video and it's going to be an introduction. It's going to have like an ending. I want to talk about the problem that I have and then the solutions that I discussed in this text. And what it's going to give back is going to be okay-ish. I think that's the best way. It will get those things back, and if I do more back and forth, I will get closer to the end result. But of course, in the end, I'll be editing this, cleaning it up until I get to a point where my notes are where they are at. But I really like this back and forth, mostly because I no longer spend all this time behind my computer, sitting in the dark, typing in Logseq. But I can walk outside and I can take like a moment to like really clear my brain while I'm typing this out, and I'll get like this nice top structure here that I can then fold in or fold out and either read or clean up to make it match more to what I'm saying. You always need to double check this because, as I said, ChatGPT was already like telling me stuff that I didn't want to add, so we'll add more than I wanted to. Either you nip that in the butt by asking something like, okay, don't add any of your own stuff, or you accept that you get some of that own stuff and then clean that up as you're working on it. Tip 5, talking towards your notes. Now I'm going to go show you a quick demo on how I have that in my Logseq. So I have this talk example page. One of the things that I want to avoid is giving ChatGPT my complete graph, mostly because I want to control what ChatGPT has in its system. And looking at this, what I do is I use block embeds. So if I go towards this text, you see like everything about the graph here. But then if I go in there, I should be able to say like, hey, look, it embeds the Logseq graph. And you can do multiple embeds in here to get like a full set of notes that you want to export towards ChatGPT. But the remembering is mostly by embedding this when I export the page. So I go here, export the page. All that text will be there. And that means that I can easily either copy it as text or I can export it and then use that as data for Logseq. Let me copy this. Then we go to ChatGPT. I'm going to go start a new one. Say, please read this and respond okay. I'm going to avoid it talking a lot about the data I'm putting in there. So now it read the data and I can start asking it questions. So for example, what does pause simulation do? And then if I do that one, it should shift me in the grab paste in paste. So by asking questions toward my notes, I'll get like a quick summary in the bottom. Please keep in mind though that depending on how difficult your question is, definitely if it's not answerable in the text that you just posted, it will start hallucinating. It will start adding information there. So always be able to double check in your notes what's there. But having like this back and forth and chatting with it is at least a good way to go through large sets of data where you're not exactly sure what's in your notes. The more notes you provide, the better this function works. And one of the main reasons of using the page embed and making like a chat page means that if you want to have a conversation with your data, using the embed allows you to have like more data and have it updated while you're working in your Logseq. And it allows you to limit the amount of data that you're putting into ChatGPT. And that is actually the thing we're going to talk about now, and that is the privacy concerns with ChatGPT in general. So now that we have these tips out of the way, I want to explain a little bit about OpenAI, the large language model, and its privacy concerns. And this is, to me, something that anybody that wants to use any type of AI really needs to dig into and understand before they put all their personal data in there. So all data that is put into something like ChatGPT will be used for training. This is in your terms of use. So if you look here and you zoom in a little, you see that your content, this is what you provide, anything you type, paste, put into there, will be used and is now considered the content. Your ownership remains with you, so that part is at least good. You don't transfer ownership towards OpenAI when you're putting data into it, but it will be used for training purposes, and you can disable that. There is an opt-out option that allows you to stop it from using it, but it's not ideal. You go to settings and you say chat history and training, you switch that off, and then you lose nearly all functionality of the ChatGPT. First of all, it doesn't sync between different systems. You have to switch this off on every browser that you use. So if you have it on your phone or on your desktop, you have to remove it on multiple places. And one of the main benefits, or what I pay ChatGPT for, is having like this history of chats that I have, so that, for example, me chatting with my phone is something that I can easily open on my desktop. But then the question becomes, if it's going to use this all for training data, how bad is that? Well, it's not as bad as you might think. Mostly people that don't fully understand what it is doing in here think that it basically has a copy of everything, and that's not totally true, as the training data for these things, these large language models, is way bigger than the size of the resulting large language model that's actually used to generate your text. What does that mean? Well, I did a little searching and I tried to find like the size of the large language model of ChatGPT, but I can't. Also, I think that it's much easier to explain when we're talking stable diffusion, which works with images. So the stable diffusion checkpoint, so that's the data that you need to start generating images, is 7.2 gigabytes of data. For example, that's about 3,400 pictures of ramen in my phone. And that's not a lot of photos if you look at the internet. So you can see, for example, my last holiday went to Florida, which was absolutely amazing. And just in those 3 weeks, we already made 1,648 photos. So 2 trips to Florida means I produce more data than is in the complete large stable diffusion set. And this was the large set. There is another set that is like half that data. To put that into perspective, you're expecting all the images of the world to be in that 7.2 gigabytes. That is better compression than anybody has ever done in the history of mankind. Let me explain a little bit by going over the data. So if you take this where it shows like the world data, currently the internet around 2023, 2024 here, I'm taking the 120 zettabytes of data, and it's increasing exponentially after that. And what that means that if you put those side by side, like the world data that we have on the internet and what's in stable diffusion, it doesn't even show up. You can't even see one pixel line of the bar on the side. So yeah, that's minuscule. And I'm even cheating a bit here because I multiplied the stable diffusion size by 1 billion and then it still doesn't show up. That's how insignificantly small the end result of a large language model is compared to the world data that comes out of it. So how do people then produce stuff? It's all about frequency. So like, how often does a model train it? Because that's how AI works. It trains on data set and it tries to find patterns. One post from you isn't a pattern. A pattern is something like Bohemian Rhapsody. everybody knows Bohemian Rhapsody, everybody knows the song text, everybody knows this picture. And that also means that there's like a lot of copies of that on the internet. So if I ask it to generate something that looks like it, you'll get something close, but it doesn't even know already that like it should put the faces above and below. And I did really try by asking it like, no, I want that specific one where they're like left, right, bottom, center. It just couldn't do it already. But if I ask for something like, hey, can you get me the first few lines of the song? That's like excellent. So is it in there? No. What's in there is the fact that everybody in the world tends to know these lines and has been using them in tweets, in blog posts, in all these other places. The reason it can reproduce this is because it's everywhere. It is large. It's there. If I ask it something much more specific, and then I'm going to do myself in this case and say like, hey, what does Tools on Tech talk about in Streams in the Buffet? This is a post on my website. It's publicly available information, and whatever is here is absolute bullshit. It is not even close to what I was typing onto my website, and the data set that I'm using here is ChatGPT 4, which is the end of 2023, and my post was up then. So not everything is in there, and it talks about streaming while I'm talking about productivity, which is a totally different topic. Now, can I get that information? Yes, but then I have to tell ChatGPT to read the internet. So I can use the web browser extension if you have the paid version, say like, hey, go read my blog and then give me a summary. And this summary is correct. So privacy, key points, your data will probably not show up. You are an infinitesimal small thing in the data set that won't show up as specific data. But it is important to keep in mind that it will be used in training the models. So I wouldn't put anything in it that you would really deem sensitive, though chances of it showing up in somebody else's training data is a pure luck chance. But to be realistic, there is still a chance. It's a small chance, a really small chance, as in like you have more of a chance to win the lottery, you have more of a chance to have your plane drop out of the sky, but it is still a chance. So keep that in mind. If you put something in there and you worry about sparks of that getting out to the rest of the world, then I wouldn't put it in there. Right, that was my first ChatGPT tips for Logseq. I hope you find it interesting. Remember, you're awesome, keep it up, and see you in the next one.